Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dharma Portal. So I am very rarely meeting people who are completely on the same page in a spiritual sense, and we can sit down and talk together, and it feels like we've known each other for lifetimes. But in one of these rare moments, I actually met Robert Sniadach. Sniadach? Was it
Sniadach? Yes.
Sniadach? I met Robert Sniadach through some other situation, but the moment we connected, I could feel that there was something different about this guy. And so we started talking, and out came, Pandora's box. All kinds of things started revealing itself. And I really, I'm so excited about getting you on video and having this conversation with you. So I really want to, first I want to just introduce you to the audience, to the listeners. And then after that, because we have so many rabbit holes we can go down, so we're going to go much deeper into this on the live event on Saturday. So this will serve more as an introduction and sneak peek on where we can go together. So welcome to the Dharma Portal, Robert.
Yes, thank you very much, Josh. Really appreciate it.
So why don't we start with you just explaining a little bit about your background, where you come from, and then also the massive process you've been through of awakening, etc.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. In a nutshell, I was born and raised in the United States, East Coast boy, good upbringing, kind of a lower middle class upbringing. Everything was fine with that. Got into an engineering and design degree after college, and went to work doing technical work, corporate work, and that got old really quickly. I know I was driven by other desires inside, but as we're all raised in the USA, you want to get your education, get out there and get working. So yeah. I was doing that. And what happened with me personally that really triggered my path was I had some health concerns, a lot of sinusitis, a lot of ear, throat, nose problems. And it became chronic. I was having these chronic infections. And went into the medical system to look for a resolution of that. Really had not much of a clue about healthcare at all. Yeah. And the medical guys were basically telling me, take these drugs, and if they don't help, eventually we'll have to do surgery and do a rotor-rooter through your sinuses. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Hang on, Take a break. I'll call you if I'm interested. So I backed out of the medical realm, looked into the alternative realm, and that was a crazy scenario because everybody had a different answer for this one problem, which didn't make any sense to me, but I didn't know any better way. So I started trying all these different alternative methods to deal with my sinuses.
How old were you back then when you started?
I guess I was in my early 20s. Yeah, this had been an issue with me a lot as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then teenagerhood, I guess, with all the hormones and growth spurt and all that sort of thing, I didn't notice it much. But then in my early 20s, it really kind of came back with a vengeance. It was becoming a real problem, real drag. So anyhow, I started this search looking for answers and got into the medical, as I say, backed out of that, looked at the alternative, saw all these different therapies and treatments and philosophies, and I'm scratching my head wondering, how do I make sense of any of this? How does anybody make sense of any of this? Yeah. And I didn't know, so I just started trying them and trying different techniques. Some worked somewhat, some worked well, but then faded away. Others didn't work at all, didn't make any sense, no rhyme or reason. And then I got lucky. A guy at work where I was working at the time, he gives me this little book he had on a subject called natural hygiene. And I looked at this book, just kind of zipped through it real quick. And it was real interesting timing. I must have been primed for this particular book. It came across my desk. I kind of flipped through it. And as I'm going through it, I'm nodding my head. I'm going, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, well, that's common sense. And then that was the end of the book. And I just kind of, a light bulb went off. And I just kind of realized, wow, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. It makes perfect sense. It's logical. It's rational. Intuitively, it felt right. Common sense. So I started applying it. And make a long story short, it completely resolved my sinusitis. Within a month or so, I had no sign or symptom whatsoever. It was a miracle for me at that time. It really, how can I say? It really kicked in my path. I knew as a child I was driven by something inside deeper, but I couldn't pinpoint it. It was very vague. So this health concern caused me to look deeper into healthcare. And I found what I consider to be truth in healthcare. So with applying this truth, so-called truth, I found the results were outstanding, and it's been awesome. And that was, 35 years ago now. So I've never looked back.
You're still doing it. You're still doing it.
Yeah. Everybody who gets into this, this philosophy and natural hygiene, you tweak it a little bit here and there to suit your own circumstances, but the philosophy, the principles of it, the practices of it, they're hardcore truth as far as human biology, human physiology, human mental and emotional realm. So it really touches on all of it, but in a very simple and natural way.
Yeah.
So anyways, it really clicked, and it really touched something deep inside me. So I really got into it. In fact, I got into it so much, I decided to ditch my corporate career, my engineering work, and I went back to school to get my chiropractic degree.
Okay.
And the reason I did that was specifically to practice and teach natural hygiene on a professional level.
Okay.
So went through the chiropractic school, got all that done, did my fasting supervision internship with a renowned natural hygiene doctor in Florida, and then got on with my own natural hygiene fasting supervision work. And we can get into the fasting stuff more as we go. So got into that work, and that was that was in my early 30s by the time all this passed. Right about that time, as I was getting on with my fasting career and teaching and so on, deeper urges inside me were starting to really show their faces very clearly. I guess the way I put it is the two words, truth and freedom, were always driving me inside. And I couldn't really pinpoint, what was the truth I was looking for. It was just kind of a vague thing. And freedom, what was I trying to be free from? I didn't particularly have any big issues I could see. There was nobody out there oppressing me directly. But nevertheless, these two words kept really driving me and pushing me. And I came to realize it was really a spiritual drive inside to connect with my true essence. And so, that all sounds nice, but in a practical sense, what does any of that really mean? And like most people who get on a spiritual path, just like it was when I was looking for answers to my health problems, you sort of open the spiritual door, and it's a 3-ring circus, right? There's a million different techniques and ideas and philosophies and gurus and books, and my God, it's a total avalanche of information. You have no idea what to make to try to make any sense out of it. So again,
kind of the same situation as with the health. Like alternative health, it's a big maze, and you need to learn to navigate that. And it's the same with the spiritual New Age, culture. There's also so many things, and so it's equally confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah, right. And there's no owner's manual, right? And there's no user's guide to this whole circus. So you just kind of jump in and see what appeals to you and start applying it. And you've got all the gurus and the teachers and everyone else who all claim to have the answers. They seem real authoritative, and they're gonna help me out, right? So you sit at their feet and listen to what they got to say and start going for it. So the same process happened. I tried all kind of different spiritual points of view, philosophies, techniques, practices, and the same sort of confusion and frustration started kicking in. How can any of this really make any sense? I was trying my best to do it intuitively as I could, but I really had no references. So just kept rolling with that process. And probably, let's see, I guess I was about 40 years old. About 40 years old. This was 1997. And I was deeply meditating. I was doing a lot of toning, chanting sort of thing. That was my practice, along with the meditation, all my health practices, and some yoga kind of techniques, not hardcore, but basically trying to keep my body and mind tuned up and keep it as fit, you could say, as possible. So right about age 40, became aware of a meditation teacher at the time who claimed he was a Kundalini master. And I had no idea what Kundalini even was, but for some reason I was attracted to this guy and what he had to say. So I started tuning into his process and his lectures and so on, and became one of his students, you might say. So over a period of 3 years, I was using his meditative practices and so on, and he offered a few retreats a year. So
is this guy famous?
Not so much. His name is Charles Cannon. He's in Virginia in the United States. I haven't actually touched base with those guys in a long time, so I imagine he's still at it. He would be fairly old by now. Nevertheless, the point was he was not only heavily promoting meditation in his particular techniques, but a Kundalini basis sort of was his foundation, and he worked from that as well, very strongly. So a lot of the Kundalini and somewhat Tantra-oriented practices. And for anybody who knows, Tantra isn't just a sexual thing about spirituality. It's much broader than that. That's just the aspect that gets all the attention.
Yes.
So Tantra sells, right? Yeah. For the marketing guys.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm working with this guy, and went to one of his retreats. I think it was the third one I went to. And he was offering these Kundalini transmissions as part of his retreats. And this was all pretty new to me, realize. I wasn't some sort of disciple or anything like that. This was kind of a part-time thing with this guy, just adding to my smorgasbord of spiritual practices. So he had these Kundalini transmission parts of his retreat right toward the end of the week-long retreat. And I did one of these Kundalini transmissions with him, the thumb to the third eye thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And I did that. And there was two of them on this particular night. There was a sort of a warm-up one, you might say, just to get used to the process. And then there was going to be a second one. So the first one, nothing happened, felt fine, didn't notice anything, no changes. It's like, okay, whatever. So then we did another meditation, did another little talk, and then we had another one of these transmissions. And that second transmission, something very, very fascinating happened to me. I could not only feel the energy in my third eye area moving rapidly, sort of spinning, but what felt like the equivalent of a bolt of lightning went right down to my root chakra, and right down to the place in my root chakra where my best description is it felt like a ball of worms. It's a strange visual, but picture like an earthworm,
Yeah.
and then picture about 50 of them, all sort of wrapped together and squirming around. It's exactly what it felt like, this rapid movement of all these little energy worms or something. Anyways, it was just a really weird feeling, but accompanying all this was just a blowout ecstatic experience with the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got up and floated away from this little transmission thing here and just sat in the corner by myself for about a half an hour as this process sort of unfolded and slowly subsided. And of course, like anybody who certainly has a blowout experience like this, I started talking with everybody else I knew at this retreat. What in the hell was that, right? Tell me more about this. What's going on? And some of the more seasoned disciples of his filled me in on what was probably happening. So that got me going with this whole Kundalini thing. And I guess I should say at this point that settled down, and I never felt anything like that ever again for the next 3 years. Then at about that time, right about the year 2000, I met up with a woman who had very active, powerful Kundalini going on. And we connected for reasons about the natural hygiene, actually. She was into raw foods and she was learning about it. And I have a course on natural hygiene that I offer. And she got interested in that course somewhere or another, and we met up. And when we met, we connected and something magical happened. The Kundalini she was activated with, that she was living with, you might say, somehow got into me, and then my Kundalini got activated in a big way, and it seemed to feed back to her and amplify hers, and back and forth and back and forth. And this happened over a process of about a week, and we were both just stunned by this. If anybody here has done any sort of hallucinogens or mind-altering substances like that, it felt like we were on some kind of psychedelic hallucinogens constantly. It was radical. It was wonderful, but we were barely able to handle it and had no idea what was going on.
Did you have a job at that time?
No, fortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was just a mother with a couple of kids, and nothing out of the ordinary. And I happened to not be tied down to anything at that particular moment. So it was real fortunate. And I think divine source sets all these things up for us. It knows what's going on. We don't have a clue. We're just along for the ride.
Yeah.
So, anyways, again, long story short, this Kundalini process was just amplifying between us, and things were happening, very, very undescribable things. So we just decided, this is amazing. We don't barely know each other at all, but we need to play this out and see what's going on. So this relationship carried on for about a year and a half, and it wasn't at all a conventional romantic relationship at all. It was just more like two people connecting and realizing something amazing is going on here. So long story short, again, we played this out for about a year and a half. And then we got to a point where it was clear we needed to separate to continue our own processes. and see what would happen. And in my instance, this whole process took about 4 years. It was very strongly active Kundalini for that whole 4-year time. It has some cycling to it of intensity. It can be relatively soft and then relatively strong, but it continued nonstop for about 4 years until one day, just sitting and relaxing and about to go into a meditation, an image appeared in my mind's eye that I was surrounded by giant curtains, like you might see on the stage of a theater. And there was these giant curtains all around me. Something momentous shifted in my consciousness. All those curtains fell. And literally that split second, all my sense of separateness, all my sense of a unique individual, all my sense of an ego self, a self-identity just crashed to the ground. A sense of unified connection. There was no more a me and everything else out there. It was just one giant continuum. And I was just a part of that, a witness to that, as well as being that. Impossible to describe these things, but I then realized literally a minute or two later, that's it. This whole process has finally completed. I was done, whatever done actually meant. All my spiritual questioning, all my spiritual seeking, all my spiritual desires, all my sense of separation from what I thought I was seeking, all totally stopped in that moment. And then from that moment on, this whole sense of non-dual awareness, abiding in non-dual reality, has continued to unfold for the last 16 years now. So here I am, just another guy, just like you, just like everybody else. We're human beings walking around, taking care of business. And yet my consciousness has permanently shifted to what is commonly called a non-dual. At the same time, still being here in this very dualistic reality. And so it's this interesting interplay of a background of non-dual awareness and the foreground of eating, sleeping, interacting with everybody in the world, and taking care of business, right? So that's what's been morphing and changing and evolving over the last 16 years. And I imagine this will continue until I pass on. So that's basically my story in a nutshell. And as you and I talked a little while ago recently, after 16 years now of sort of integrating and acclimating to this state of awareness, this state of being, I've gotten the real strong incentive suddenly out of nowhere to now put myself out there, you might say, and talk with people and help people in any way I can with their health concerns and the truths that I've found in healthcare. I'm also been strongly motivated by personal sovereignty, freedom, liberty, those mental concepts that drive us in our human lifetimes. And then, of course, this whole spiritual awareness, duality versus non-duality, self-identity versus expanded identity and awareness, and how all these tie together. And I guess the most important thing I have to say to people along these lines is that nature works. Nature and her processes, the incredible infinite intelligence that created each of us, animates each of us, and evolves each of us, works the same in each of these realms, in personal health care, in freedom, liberty, personal sovereignty, and in spiritual seeking. The same fundamental processes are at work. And that process essentially is that the obstacles, the toxins, the resistance that we have built up in our minds, in our consciousness, in our sense of a self-identity, they are all structured around beliefs we have taken on. And those beliefs are the very obstacles that keep us enslaved, keep us limited, keep us sick, keep us spiritually seeking for answers. The trick to it all is detoxification, essentially, to locate these blocks, these illusions, these toxins we hold with us inside, and to purge them, to eliminate them, to examine them and get rid of them. And the more we eliminate that which pollutes us inside, will free us in our conscious awareness. And that process of detoxification is true across all realms. We get rid of the crap, the freer we are. That's what it comes down to. So that's my basic message. And I intend to put myself out there, whoever I can help with this process, whoever's interested and is interested in my story, however I might help them. That's what I'm all about for the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay, that's a big mouthful. So basically, when it comes to the detoxification, you mentioned fasting, and also you're into a raw, I guess, plant-based diet and fasting, etc. So I think most listeners can totally relate to this in a physical sense, like the detoxification of the body, cleaning it out, getting rid of all the gunk that we don't need. When it comes to the internal terrain, the mind, the ego mind, the belief systems, the toxic thoughts, the stuck emotions, the traumas, the karmic imprints, what we call samskaras, like the programs you are carrying around, which is also there's a great need to detox that as well. And so how do you suggest people are going about detoxing the internal? Like when I say the internal terrain, I don't mean internally inside the body, but more like the spiritual terrain. What is your approach with that? The same as what you did, like the Tantra Kundalini activations, or what is, is there anything to do? Is there practice, or do you just need to chill out and fast and that's it? Or what's your approach?
Yeah, a lot of big questions there. Josh, I guess it really depends on where somebody is. For me, I imagine from a sort of soul point of view, I must have had numerous lifetimes logged in and experiences gained and wisdom gained over many lifetimes, all imprinted in my soul. But, we come into each lifetime and we have no clue about past lifetimes. Or if we do, even a little bit, it quickly fades away as children. So, we have to wing it each lifetime, right? So in my case, I had my chronic disease issues coming up, which was driving me. I had this sense of being limited somehow from a freedom, liberty perspective. I had no idea what personal sovereignty even was. These sort of basic, practical human needs and conditions that we each live in, I guess the way I say it a lot is, I guess I was born with that spark within me that was just driving me relentlessly inside to seek out answers for these things. And at the same time that I have this drive to do it, I had no idea really how to do it or even why necessarily.
Mhm.
So I just started going for it. Just pick something up and study it, apply it, see what happens, talk with people. If it works, keep going. If not, ditch it,
Yeah.
try again, something else. So that was my path. You know, other people come in and they seem to be maybe in a soul sense, maybe they're further along, maybe they're crystal clear this lifetime that they try meditation for the first time and it clicks, they love it, they feel like it's the most comfortable thing in the world, and they go on a practice of meditation exclusively for years, maybe decades. And that's their job this lifetime. For yourself, you got into martial arts in a really big way, and it drove you. And I'd be curious to hear your motivations, your deeper motivations behind your desires to really get into martial arts. And I think what we find with whatever our initial stimulating desire is, that across the board, those desires are prompting us to seek into these deeper realms, deeper core issues. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What's it all about? Those are the real questions, but they're going to disguise themselves in different ways if we're still sort of relatively superficial in our approach to them. So in my case, yeah, exactly. So in my case, health concerns drove me to find the truth about simple natural health care.
Mm-hmm.
My own sense of being limited and unfree drove me to dig for deeper truths as far as what freedom, liberty, personal sovereignty was all about, and social freedoms, and a sense of liberty among human beings, respect for ethics and morals and higher awareness in that realm. And then that further drove me into spiritual issues, and then trying to get to the truth of deeper spiritual issues that encompasses everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's getting to finally that got me to the really core issues. And that was my process.
Yeah.
For somebody else, they're going to come in from a different angle, from a different altitude. And with their life experiences, they'll come in from a different sense of mastery, what they have already mastered versus what they further need to master. Mm-hmm. So everybody's going to have it different, but I think those same trends, that same seeking process kicks in with just about anybody who gets really serious about this stuff.
Yeah, I would say, for example, with the martial arts, I can say that there's people who went about training the same way that I did, but got no spiritual dimensions out of it, no insights, none of that. They just became really good and won tournaments and stuff like that, and became great teachers and stuff. But there was no spiritual insights involved. There was no personal development that really started blossoming, and I met musicians that can say the same. Musicians that became really good at playing music, but they didn't have these insights coming out of it. And there's the same. I met people who meditated for like 25, 30 years, and yeah, they're peaceful and quiet inside, and they're very stable people, and they have a good life. But there's not the blossoming of the consciousness. There's this breaking down of the ego self that you experienced has not happened. And so I feel last time we spoke, you gave me, and I would like you to repeat that story you told me, where you talk about the journey of the soul through many lifetimes, and how we are evolving, and at one point we really go deep, and things are shifting, and I think so when it comes to the spiritual journey, it really, as you said, it depends on where you are at. So but would you mind sharing to the listeners this your view on how you see the journey of the soul through many lifetimes, and how it's accumulating and evolving.
Sure. I'll see if I can do an even shorter version this time.
No, please give. This is the first time everybody's listening, so we had good conversations together. But and every time we had these conversations, I was like, oh man, I should have recorded this. So please.
Yeah.
Please give all the details like last time.
Okay. Yeah. That was a good, fun conversation. I remember that.
Yeah.
So what happened during my Kundalini process? One of the hundreds of things that happened that were really profound for me. Oftentimes, as my ego was slowly being chiseled away and fractured and pieces processed and disintegrated.
The ego limping along.
Right.
I always see an ego on crutches, like, oh man, like.
Yeah, first he's limping, and then he's on crutches, and then he's on those little skateboard-like things, barely making it. Yeah. So as the solid block of my ego was being chiseled away and pieces routed out and disintegrated, with every time a significant piece of my sense of self-identity was being deconstructed, let's say, every time that happens, a massive surge of energy moves through the person experiencing that. In other words, what happens is with each belief we each take on that adds to our sense of an ego self-identity, and it becomes locked in as a part of us that we incorporate into our sense of identity. Every time one of those a piece of that is broken away and discharged, the energy that it was holding, the energy of the experience that is effectively blocked and held onto in that ego structure dissipates, and it rapidly moves through our energy circuits and disappears. And the net result is you feel lighter, you feel freer, just a little bit, or maybe a significant bit, but a piece of that block, it's being whittled down, right? Mm-hmm. So every time that would happen and that energy would discharge, Kundalini would sort of give me a new insight into what was going on at a deeper level with the whole process. So Kundalini was sort of spoon feeding me a real deep awareness of the process itself. In other words, Kundalini knew what it was putting me through, but what remained of Robert and his sense of self-identity had no freaking clue what was going on. Yeah. And I'm having to wing it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm learning what the process is about as I'm going through it.
So you got the news after the events happened.
Yeah, right. No
preparation, and if you're lucky, you will be told what's going on after.
Yeah, and sometimes I wouldn't even have a clue. I'd just be so blown out. I was just glad to survive that explosion,
Yeah.
So anyways, this process continues, and Kundalini, which I kind of consider our infinitely intelligent, vital life force inside of us, it's given me clues of what's going on the whole time. And so what would happen is, with each of these new, deeper insights into the process, I often got a glimpse and an insight about, well, for lack of a better way to say it, I would get an insight about what my soul was going through and what it went through to get me to this point where divine spirit gifted me with being able to go through this process. So I came to learn over a number of these disintegration events what the heck was going on with me and what it was all about. So this is my story. This is how it was kind of given to me. It might be given to somebody else very differently, but I strongly suspect it's a very similar fundamental process going on with all of us.
I definitely resonate with it.
Yeah.
This is your description of this is the exact same experience I'm having. So,
Yeah.
so I'm on the same page with that.
Yeah, I see it as this massive ongoing detoxification process, getting rid of that which causes illusion, causes blocks, causes disease. So what I was basically shown is, and I'll try to make this clear but simple, let's imagine a new soul is born into the cosmos. And this soul takes on many different forms. It inhabits many different life forms through a process of, let's say, soul evolution. And all of us have probably heard the stories from the Hindu traditions where we may evolve from a bacteria to a protozoa to a little worm of some kind, to an insect, to a bird, to an animal, and finally into a human being. So let's just run with that idea. So the soul inhabits these different, progressively more complex life forms, and with each more complex life forms, the soul is able to have more experiences, a wider scope of experiences. So the soul is growing. The point of an incarnated soul is to basically just have experiences, as wide and grand a selection of experiences as possible. And with each experience, through each progressively more complex life form, we're able to take in more and more wild and extreme experiences, integrate them into our soul. And over time, as all these millions and billions and trillions of experiences and impressions impinge on that new soul, that soul is evolving. And it's kind of naturally, organically synthesizing all these experiences into what we call wisdom. And so we're gaining wisdom with each lifetime in each new covering, each new body we inhabit. So then comes the time our soul has evolved enough where it inhabits humans, the human being. And let's say, for the sake of discussion, we have 100 lifetimes as a human being. In other words, we've really evolved a lot. Our consciousness is really, really rocking and rolling. It's moving to the point we've inhabited a human body. You know, as Buddha said, having incorporated my soul into a human body, this is a majestic and awesome opportunity for my soul to devolve, evolve. Yeah,
Sometimes it feels like devolving, but okay.
Yeah, right. So, okay, now we have 100 human lifetimes to come with this soul. So this soul rapidly evolves through these 100 lifetimes. And we might say the first 10 or 20 lifetimes are just involved with very basic ego construction and ego survival issues. In other words,
me, myself, and I.
Yeah, certainly. It's all about me. And it has to do a lot with those early lifetimes, have to do with just sort of experiencing and mastering ego survival and perpetuation issues. In other words, we just learn how to basically function and get along with each other, deal with survival issues, deal with basic family issues, our clan, you know, our little tribe, our relatives. That's the basis of our whole whole world in those early lifetimes. So you could say the soul is mastering issues revolving around those basic core soul development issues in those early lifetimes. Then maybe the next 30, 40, 50, 60 lifetimes, that expands and that grows. As an aside, I don't know, I don't think you and I mentioned, but I don't know if I ever brought up the idea of spiral dynamics. Have you ever heard of that? Spiral dynamics?
Well, I understand vortexes and spiraling, that everything is spin in the universe. So,
okay.
But we
Yeah.
you and I never spoke about it, but
yeah,
something
there's a human development model called spiral dynamics, and a guy by the name of Ken Wilber has taken it another step. He calls it spiral dynamics integral. And what this basically studies is how humans evolve. And it has a lot of applicability to what I'm talking about with this. And the idea is our soul starts out in a small little spiral, and over lifetimes we're gaining wisdom, and the spiral is not only elevating, going higher, but it's getting bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger and higher, it can take in more of a larger continuum of experiences, and therefore accumulate wisdom faster and more intensely as the lifetimes increase, because our capabilities now are growing rapidly, exponentially. So back to my little analogy of 100 lifetimes. Let's say the next 50, 60 lifetimes, after those initial 20, the next 50, 60 lifetimes are all about self-development in different ways. Self-development in a community sense, self-development in a personal sense. And working through that, it has, almost infinite number of aspects and facets to it. But again, the point is, in these first 80 or 90 lifetimes, it's really all about me and developing my sense of self-identity, developing my mental, emotional, kinesthetic intelligences. We have many types of intelligence we're capable of. We're growing all of these things. So these first 90 lifetimes are all about developing all that, and they're also all about receiving and integrating all of our experiences from the external world. In other words, there's an egoic sense of a separate me vis-a-vis the rest of reality, the rest of the world, the rest of the people, the rest of everything else. There's a me and there's everything else. Mm-hmm. And through that relationship of me and everything else, I'm gathering my experiences, and I'm slowly gathering my wisdom. I'm learning how to deal with all this, how to master all these things. And that includes every conceivable experience you have. It's all received and integrated from the fundamental point of view of me and everything and everyone else. So that's where all of our interaction relates from. Starting, I'm going to say, from the 90th lifetime, maybe the 92nd, 95th lifetime, suddenly this sense of being sort of maxed out with this me versus everything else, and needing to get my experiences from the outside world, that which seems to exist outside of me. It all starts becoming progressively more boring, frankly. In other words, the excitements of the world, the attractiveness of the world, the temptations of the world start just losing their thrill. It's like, okay, I've done that enough. I've experienced that enough. I don't need to keep seeking out there and with other people to get fulfillment. That's not doing it for me anymore, right? So we're getting to a sense where the deeper questions of why and who am I and what's it all about I mentioned earlier, those questions start percolating up to the surface and start becoming more important. Whereas before, we didn't really care about any of that. We were just totally into experiencing life and getting the most juice out of it that we could, right? It's like squeezing a turnip or something. You're trying to juice it for all it's worth. And it's a taking kind of thing. Now we're moving into a situation where you've kind of juiced everything possible, and it no longer has the thrill it has. Yeah. So now what do? Now we're in this kind of no man's land where the world isn't as attractive anymore.
And I just want to inject here. I see this in a lot of people, that they're losing interest in the world. They don't find pleasure in anything anymore. And if there is, it's short-lived. And so it's emptiness. They see the emptiness in everything, and they basically start imploding on themselves because everything they knew is now falling away and falling apart. There is no excitement about the external anymore. And this is there's a saying that if you go towards spirituality, if you're not tired, you're not ready. If you're tired, you're ready. Because if you hadn't had enough, if you still feel sex, money, fame, all that stuff is what you want, then you're not ready. So you have to be really tired before you're ready for true spiritual, the real spirit. Because a lot of people are still hungry, and they go into the new age, and it's fashion, and so now they will become spiritual, and that's their new excitement, right? And so this is a new identity, it's a new face, it's a new instead of having a career, now it's like, I'm gonna be super spiritual now. And so there's still this you're still hungry. You're not coming there because you're done with all of it, right? And so I see a lot of that too, even in the spiritual communities.
Yeah, and you know what's fascinating? We can sort of get glimpses of this at many different lifetimes. You know, we can even be in an early lifetime, and once we've mastered some simple aspect of it, it gets old, right? Been there, done that, got it. So the same process unfolds within each lifetime, but yet there's also this cumulative expansion that's happening over many lifetimes that eventually gets us ready to take on our deeper self in ways that we were never even aware of before, much less interested in. So yeah, you're right. You gotta be completely tired and bored and had enough of whatever the world offers before this process can really kick in.
Yeah.
And when you have those feelings about many things in life, that you don't fit in, you don't belong, it's not appealing to you anymore, that's a good indication you're an old soul. You're quite evolved, and you're on the edge of some really big things here. So, you know, keep going. Now's the time. So you get into those last lifetimes. Out of 100, we're moving up to lifetime 98, 99, and suddenly the whole idea of spirituality and seeking spiritual issues and seeking answers starts becoming very, very important. It starts dominating everything else. That it becomes the only thing that really you care about anymore, because you've left the world behind, but yet you're still in it. You're in this weird space of, I don't feel like I belong here, but what else is there to do? You know, there is nothing else to do. I feel like I've done enough. I don't want the world, but I don't know how to get to where I should be going.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt pretty much my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you're into that 99th, maybe you're finally into that 100th lifetime where at some point in that lifetime, usually early on, usually you start getting signs of it as a child, even as a teenager. You might have some spontaneous mystical awareness experiences, or perhaps you try some psychedelics, some hallucinogens, and they blow open some doors internally for a little while, and you touch on these grander spiritual experiences, and that really lights the fire. It's like, man, this is what I want. How do I get it? How do I get myself to this permanently? And it becomes an obsession, frankly, a total obsession.
Mm-hmm.
And you start getting into spiritual issues in a really big way. But as we talked about earlier, you really don't have a clue how to do spirituality. You just kind of go for it and hope for the best.
Yeah.
So here we are in that 100th lifetime. Divine has decided your soul is ready. It turns up the volume. Now you're interested in spiritual issues like a total obsession. You've got to find the answers. Nothing else is really important. It can totally mess up your life. You start forgetting about your career, your marriage, your finances, your friends. Everything can start being questioned because you're looking for the truth, the ultimate truth. You don't even know what it is, but you got to find it. That's how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
So you start digging, and it's in that lifetime that something will happen. There will be some massive kind of breakdown or mind fracturing experience that causes you to sort of break free from and question everything you're doing, everything who you think you are. And it really puts you into a state of terror. Frankly, you're losing your sense of groundedness, your sense of footing. Whereas earlier in your life, you might have thought, I got a handle on this. I run my life. I've been there, done that. I know what I'm doing, where I'm going. This fractures all of that. And in my case, it happened through Kundalini, an overt, massive increase in the life force energy moving through me, which I call Kundalini. And the whole purpose for this massive increase of Kundalini to be experienced is that Kundalini knows, in my case, Kundalini knew my soul was ripe. The time was right to now start the process of egoic self-identity breakdown.
Yeah.
And that is one hell of a process. It is, in my case, it was extremely intense and wonderful and terrifying, back and forth as my sense of self-identity and ego structure was progressively dismantled.
Yeah, wonderful and terrible, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah. And there's so many facets to this. It was incredible. Hundreds, thousands of episodes of cycling back and forth through, a real blissful state into a terrified, disconnected state, and many more. We can maybe talk about these things a bit. I'm sure you've had your own. So bottom line, of these 100 lifetimes, you get to this 100th lifetime, now you're ready. Now the fruit is ripe. It's ready to be picked. Now's the time where the whole point of incarnating as a human being, creating an ego to set up this sense of a separate self, to experience that separate self vis-a-vis the world for many lifetimes, gain many experiences. What's happening is we're gaining soul maturity. We're in soul development to the point, in other words, what I'm saying is, and I don't read about this much, I don't hear others really talking about this much. You know, once you go through ego deconstruction and your sense of self-identity disintegrates and finally crashes to the ground, and the sense of awareness and the consciousness one is in from that point forward, I rarely hear people talking about looking back and saying, wow, 99 lifetimes of living through this ego thing. What the hell was the point of having an ego for 99 lifetimes? What was the grand purpose of even having this thing? In other words, why not start with lifetime one of being free from this thing and just evolving some other way? But no, that's not the way Divine set it up. Divine set it up like, if the soul is going to inhabit this sort of next level species called a human being that's capable of great self-awareness, self-contemplation, and experimentation with morals and ethics and truth versus falsehood and helping each other versus harming each other, all these kind of things. We're capable of all these diverse experiences as human beings, and we can self-create them. Whereas most of the animal kingdom, more or less, and in most cases more, runs solely on instinct, on hardwired programming. We and maybe a few other species, elephants, dolphins, the other primates, you know, they all have some capacity for self-awareness and self-direction. In other words, they can set their instinct aside somewhat and act contrary to instinct. So we as human beings have that in the strongest and most capable way of any other species we know about. So for a soul to inhabit a human being gives us tremendously more capabilities than any other species our soul may have previously inhabited. So the way I see it, the way it was shown to me was that soul inhabits human beings, and very early on in each lifetime, a specific sort of flavor of ego is built in that human lifetime. And we work through that ego, that particular type of ego we have created, in order to learn mastery of different aspects of our human being, of these capabilities we have. You might say that soul and infinite intelligence knew that if we didn't have the sort of limiter, the down throttle capability of ego, how it limits us, if we didn't have those limitations built in our first 99 lifetimes, we would spin out of control very quickly, right? We wouldn't no mastery at all, and all these sudden capabilities we have, we would abuse the heck out of them, and we'd self-destruct in no time. So ego kind of acts as a limiter, and it acts as a feedback mechanism to get certain experiences, feel all the feelings, experience all the emotions and mental states that surrounds these experiences, as we slowly but surely master the capabilities of what it is to be a human being, an adult, mature, fully functioning human being. It takes many lifetimes to even get there. That's why we see so many people around us who aren't fully functioning adult human beings. Even though they look fully grown, they still act like 5-year-olds, right? Or like teenagers. We see that all around us. And I've certainly had my time of not living up to my capabilities. So we hit that 99th lifetime and that 100th lifetime, and our soul is ready, and these processes kick in of radical and massive spiritual evolutions within that lifetime. And that's it, man. The seatbelt's off, the glasses are off, the helmet's off, no protection whatsoever. You're flying down that roller coaster at top speed. You have no idea what's coming, but you know this is what you're built for. This is what you're meant for. This is why you're here, to go through this process and finally reach the goal where the soul is now ready to cast off its limiting ego structures permanently and forever. And that's it. That's why we're here. What's next? You know, sometimes I've asked myself, and I've asked Divine directly, okay, if in fact I'm done now with this whole ego business as a human being, what's next? What's my next lifetime going to be about? And, you know, there's various writings and sage wisdom about this sort of thing. But in my opinion, it's time for this soul to probably move on to some other species, some other planet that's inherently more evolved and ready to move to new levels of soul mastery in form, in some kind of form, on some kind of level, possibly another dimension. Who knows? We can only speculate about this stuff. So the next one's going to be wild. It'll be just like lifetime number one in a human. I'll be starting all over again on a whole new level as a baby, right?
Maybe you incarnate as a cockroach.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a fascinating process. Consciousness is developing over all these lifetimes. And it seems to me, the information I've been given is that that's kind of the purpose for this human shell, is to develop an ego, master it over lifetimes. And when the soul is ready, Divine starts the process, kicks in Kundalini in one form or another. You know, many traditions don't call it that. They call it other things, or they describe this process in different ways. But in my opinion, it's all the same. It's a massive increase of life force energy that is now directed by a higher intelligence that already resides within us, but has been dormant. Now it flowers. Now it opens up. Now it courses through our body and mind, finding every block, finding every bit of resistance, finding every emotional and mental block, examining it, dissecting it, discharging the energy from it, and disintegrating it. Yeah. And then it moves on to the next block. And this process takes time. In my case, it took 4 years. And I can really say that many, many years up until the Kundalini process really kicked in, we're all about preparing for this process. Yeah. And we've talked about that a bit, and I'd love to hear some more about your sense of your preparatory processes over years. Divine knows what's coming. It knows this is the 100th lifetime. This is when it's all going to go down. And so it wisely prepares your body and mind to be able to handle the intensity of this process. So I look at many spiritual disciplines, different types of yoga, meditation, healthful living, optimizing your body's functioning. All the different spiritual disciplines are all ways to prepare one's mind and body for this ultimate process of breakthrough. Yeah. So that doesn't make any of them right. It just makes them good preparation. Yeah. And whatever one you're attracted to is the one you need to do. Yeah. If meditation is right, if raw foods turn you on, if that really excites you, if power yoga is really your thing, then there's a darn good reason for that. Follow that drive, follow that instinct, follow that intuition, and max it out. Become really good at it and master that, because that's preparing your body and mind for this ultimate breakthrough. Yeah. And that, I see you, and I see someone like myself. once we've experienced this, we see the importance of preparation.
Yeah.
It's possible, I suppose, for divine to turn on the Kundalini, and our body and mind may be not as prepared as it could or should be. In other words, it kind of doesn't make sense, because you say to yourself, wait a minute, if it's infinite intelligence, it knows exactly when to turn it on for darn good reason.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know better. Our limited mind doesn't know better than the universal mind. But perhaps we need an experience, a blast of Kundalini to just knock us out, to remind us that we need to prepare better, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think maybe that soul needs a lifetime where they have a too early activated Kundalini experience, and they're ending in deep trouble and have all these problems, etc. And those experiences in that lifetime will kind of echo into the other lifetimes, and so they will go about it in a much more graceful manner and safe and slow and respectful, maybe. And so, you know, it's the divine intelligence, and we don't know we don't have that bird's eye view on things. So what apparently looks like a bad thing for a person in that lifetime may not be such a bad thing at all in the future life. And also sometimes people who have really crash and burn, they carry that memory into another lifetime, and they will be huge facilitators for a lot of people for not making these mistakes. And so they can actually maybe help others not to do that mistake. And so we don't know, just like many people go through a tough childhood, and they are sitting there wondering, why did I have to go through all that? And then later on in their lives, they find themselves helping a lot of other people going through this process and understanding what it's all about. And so now all that pain actually made sense, right? So now they have this experience. In regards to, I just want to mention my own, my near-death experiences. When I died, I went through many levels of existence, many dimensions, and I went straight back to source, and then I came back again. But what I saw was that there is beings, souls, living on higher planes of existence that are extremely advanced, extremely conscious, and they all know that they're dreaming. They all know that this is a dream, an illusion. It's just different layers and levels of dreaming. These even higher dimensions are still illusions and dreams. But these beings on those planes of existence, they are actually fully conscious of it. Contrary to us, we are running around thinking it's all real. And so that's what I saw when I moved into these levels of existence. And what I also saw is the soul is just have a yearning for unity, a sense of oneness, going into the experience of oneness on a more and more higher, refined, higher vibrational state. So unity consciousness expresses itself more and more profoundly at the higher levels of existence. So oneness is not the end. It's actually just becoming more and more refined, more and more precise, expressed itself. And that's what I saw on these high levels of existence. So what I do think myself, it's just a feeling I have, is that when you pop and you awaken as a human being on planet Earth, that incarnation will definitely be the last as a human being. And it feels very intuitively strongly for me that the next incarnations you're going to do is exactly what you said, which is you're going to inhabit a more higher, refined version of unity consciousness. And that in that state, you are actually like a baby stepping in, and you need to now open up even further and more in your heart and in your consciousness. And there's more refinement, more evolution going on, and there's a deeper sense of oneness. And so we're stepping into these just new layers and new octaves of existence with more and more refinement until we end back with source. And actually, that's the end of the journey, and then you start all over again.
All right.
That's what I see. It's like the breath. You breathe in, break, you breathe out, and then you breathe in again.
Yeah, very, very good. Well said.
Expansion and contraction of the whole universe. And so, so yeah, that's what I see. So I don't think we de-evolve. I think you just evolve into a more and more conscious expression of awareness.
Yeah, you said something also I think is very important, is that what looks like something wrong or bad is never wrong or bad.
No.
Whatever, who was it? I forget the guy who said this, but very, very nice little simple quote. What is correct.
Yeah.
Always. So
you could also, I just want to inject there, to say that something is wrong is to say that God made a mistake.
Perfect.
And that's extreme arrogance. If God could write a sentence to us, he would say, chill out, guys, I got this.
Yeah. But I need you to come along and pay attention, right?
Yeah, just relax. It's okay. I got this.
Very good. Very good. So yeah, and you see this process. There's a certain pattern to this process. What looks bad or wrong or a mistake or incorrect later on becomes clear that, oh, that was the best thing that could have happened. That was perfect. But you can't see that at the time because of our limited consciousness, right?
Exactly.
And in the human form, what limits our consciousness is our beliefs we've taken on and incorporated into our self-identity. And then every time we take on a belief, in a sense, we narrow the possibilities of our soul, but it's actually happening on purpose.
Yes.
Because in any given lifetime, we have certain lessons to master, to experience and to master. And the soul wants to get us on that track as quickly as it can. So that particular ego is evolved early in that lifetime in order to optimize the chances of having the experience that best fit what that soul needs. Now, what you needed and what I needed and what everyone in our audience needs is different. But the same process, the same pattern in this process happens over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a parent of a child. The parent has already been through 20, 30, 40 years, has some wisdom up their sleeve, and they watch their child fumbling and stumbling and making all these mistakes. And as a wise adult, they need these mistakes. They have to go through this, and eventually they'll understand why it was needed. So see, the same pattern is in operation at multiple levels. So when we talk about spiritual issues, we're just talking about the same process, the same pattern, but in a macro point of view, the reason for the whole existence of my soul in this human body. It's the same pattern. And that's what I've seen with healthcare, the same process, what seem like mistakes and compound errors, which eventually result in disease on the physical level. Those errors are all necessary to get you seeking for higher, better answers, right? Yeah. Just the way life works. So yeah, same process, same pattern across the board. So everything. Everything.
It's just, I can tell you in martial arts, when you do sparring with people, if you always win, you're going to be extremely vulnerable because sooner or later you're going to meet somebody who's going to surprise you totally and do something you didn't expect. So the best fighters are those who lost a lot and like really tried and who just got their asses kicked all the time. And at one point they just get so thick-skinned and tough, and there's nothing that can happen that can surprise them because they've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt on all the failures. And because of that, they don't make these failures anymore. And those are the experienced fighters that are really, really difficult to deal with. And so ego is not a mistake. 99 lifetimes with lots of ego is not a mistake. It has refined the soul. It has ennobled it. It makes it mature to such a level it can carry a much larger, broadband perspective of everything and move in much more with a much more bigger width of experience and bandwidth of frequency. And so that's what I see. I think ego is beautiful. We just need to some of us who are at these last lifetimes, those are the people who will listen to these talks, because those are the people who are like, I'm done with all this stuff, so I'm looking for something else. And those are the people that are listening to this stuff here, because they're like, so we are there's few people on earth who are saying, they say, okay, I realize I need to tell people, hey, first of all, it's just a game. And second, I'm here to remind you that you have decided you want to stop playing it. And it's time. Put down the whatever you're doing and stop the world, stopping the world. And this is what it's all about for those people who are on that last lifetime. The rest are saying, what do you mean it's just a game? Yeah, okay, cool, great, but I'm gonna be busy playing it. And so I don't have time for this. Like, I don't want to listen to this stuff. And so what? Yeah, okay, I get it. So what? Moving on. But they haven't exhausted the excitement about the world to such a degree that this is the only thing left that they have interest in. And so this interview here is only for the 1% of the population, or maybe less, that is on this last lifetime and saying enough is enough. I'm done. I'm ready to turn off the lights and go.
You know what's so cool, I think, is we are at a point with humanity on Earth where this is the first time in our history we are capable of totally destroying everything.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really comprehend that, the enormity of that, the power we now wield to destroy not only our own species, but even all life on the planet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That demands incredible accountability and responsibility. So now the question is, does humanity's collective soul, and this is just an imaginary thing, but play with this, if indeed there's a collective soul for humanity, we have created now a test for ourselves to summon up the deepest bit of wisdom we contain to get through this. Otherwise, we're going to destroy ourselves, and it'll be another grand experiment that went poof. Yeah, so we got this pandemic thing. We've got nuclear weapons. We're polluting our nest all around the planet.
Destroying the soil, everything.
Human beings are screwing up in like every conceivable manner to a degree where the planet itself is faltering. You know, it's getting on its own edge of, I don't know how much of this I can take. So in a really grand way, we're going through, you could say, an ego experience that is testing us to the limit if we can summon and utilize enough wisdom to get ourselves through this. Yeah. So how consciousness is responding to this test is by waking up, or at least starting to wake up, huge numbers of people. I don't think we even realize how many millions of people are seeing what's happening on a human level and basically just saying, all right, this is serious. On this level, there's no more screwing around here. We got to take this on, and we got to see what we're capable of, what we're made of, and get through this. I don't know how it's going to play out. You know, maybe you have some interesting thoughts, but I'm seeing those of us who have awakened and those of us who are on board the train and really deeply, intensely involved with the process of awakening. There's an interesting thing that happens with the awakening process in that last lifetime. When the process kicks in, it goes exponentially forward fast. In other words, the experiences are being processed, the crap inside of our consciousness is being eliminated, and our awareness is expanding exponentially, really, really fast. And so as that's happening, you could say that the cumulative level of consciousness on the planet is getting all the input from all of us who are awakening in a big way. And that's evolving our collective consciousness very quickly. So in other words, our collective capability of taking on these problems and crazy issues we've created for ourselves as a species, consciousness is summoning up the ability to meet the challenge.
Yeah, that's what I see is happening. So I mean, there's so many. This is a huge topic, and I think I would like to go into this topic on Saturday because it's big, it's huge. But all I can say is that from my understanding, my own experience, we have individual consciousness. I mean, you know, in a sense, it's not individual, but there's the experience through this, right? And we have our own karma and imprints and some scars and all that stuff to deal with, and the cleaning up process and all that stuff. But that happens on a collective level as well, and that is one entity. Planet Earth, humanity consciousness, all living beings consciousness on Earth is one being. And as that one collective consciousness is playing itself out, a lot of people are sitting in the individual consciousness wondering, why isn't the world changing? Because I changed, how come the world doesn't change? But that's because there's something bigger that you are part of. You're part of a bigger collective consciousness, and we are sharing the karma together as a species. And so what I see is that the only solution for all the world's problems, the only solution, I don't see any other solution. The only solution is awakening, the collective awakening of consciousness. And so with that said, what I saw in my near-death experiences on the other side is that there is a huge awakening, planetary awakening happening in this lifetime that is going to like open up very rapidly. And what I saw on the other side was very like fast, but what it feels like in a lifetime is slow. But it is, if you're looking around in the world right now and pay attention, you will see that there is a spiritual awareness on a collective level that is definitely opening up rapidly on a collective level. So when I was a kid, nobody was talking about meditation, yoga, and all that stuff. Like, and I couldn't talk to anybody about these things that we're sitting talking about now. And now it's everywhere. Like a lot of people this is a really not hiding anymore. And so I can see that in just my short lifetime, the change on this earth has been dramatic, and it is speeding up, and it's happening fast and fast and fast. And I also believe that you know, you could say your heart is like the sun. The center of the sun is like the center of your heart, and the whole universe is within you. And this Kundalini you experience, it's a burning energy. It is the flame of truth that burns through your spine and cleanses you out. And
Nice.
on an external level, because we can say that the sun is the Christ consciousness, or the enlightened one, or whatever. And you can also say externally on this planet, the sun can do a flat. That's what I saw on the other side. I saw the sun doing a massive pulse flash, and the energy went into the center of the earth and came out from the center and through humans and into the cosmos, and the Father, Son, and Mother Earth, and the Holy Trinity, the child in between, got connected, the divine conduit, and which is exactly what Kundalini is all about, right? And so on a collective scale, as a human species, this is exactly the same alchemical transformation that humanity is going to go through, as you went through with your own Kundalini experience. And I saw that on the other side, and I came back and I was like wondering, how do I verbalize this? And that's when I started studying esoteric materials, because I needed to learn the language to explain these things. And that's what I see is so first of all, the sun is known without a doubt to change and alter DNA as we know it of all life on earth. Second, there's going to be a divine intervention, grace, and activation of the cosmic Kundalini on earth. And so humanity is going to go through this intense initiation that you've been going through. And I'm praying and hoping that majority is ready for this, because you had to prepare for many years up to that moment to even not lose your mind, you know, to not go insane and to not die, and to kind of gracefully slide through this process. And so this is what humanity is in store for humanity. The process has already started. And that's why so many people are freaking out right now, because something is really off now. But this is only gonna turn up the volume. It's only gonna be, and then the big culmination will happen. That's your moment in the chair sitting, and the walls fall down. Well, when that happens, if you're not ready, you're gonna have a bad hair day on that day, and you're not gonna enjoy this process. But if you are ready, this is going to be liberation, freedom, and you will be enjoy and ecstasy and bliss. And so depending on who you are and where you're at as an individual, you're either going to enjoy this or not. But as a collective, this is going to be a grandiose, beautiful day, because it will only happen when it's ready. And Earth is very, very close to being ready now. And so what we are doing individually, as these small little white blood cells in the body running around like Pac-Man, eating up all the toxic stuff around us and helping spreading the good news collectively to as many people who want to listen to this stuff. That's our job. That's all we do. We just want to do what we can to prepare ourselves and prepare as many as we can around us. That's all I want to do. That's all. I don't care about anything else. And so because this is real, it's coming, and no stone will be unturned. Everybody is gonna feel this. This is not something you can hide from. And so it's time to take this serious and wake up and actually go about this in a manner that is kind of like it's a matter of life and death, because everybody counts and everything matters. And so your participation is going to be, it is there 100%, but it's kind of like you're on the train, it's moving, you have two choices: enjoy the ride, or running around kicking and screaming thinking you can get out, because you can't. And so this is basically that is the solution to all the problems of this planet, all of it. There's no way a civilization, a collective consciousness that is in unity consciousness, will drop oil in the ocean pollute anything and destroy the Amazon forest or chemtrail everything or whatever. I mean, all these things are going to not be something to even consider, because why would I drink poison in my water? Why would I cut my big toe off? Why would I pull out a healthy tooth? Why would I do stupid things to my body? Because it's all one, right? I'm not sitting trying to forgive my big toe for having pain. Forgiveness is a joke. It's more like, hey, what can I do to help, my big toe? Because it's all me. It's all me anyway. So we are changing our behaviors automatically once we perceive reality clearly as it is, instead of this story that we've been told. We are telling ourselves that it is. So anyway, that was a little bit of a rant, but I want to go much deeper into these things on Saturday, because this is a big topic, and I want to empower people, and because the thing is, we need to be effective in where our focus is. Because if we are running around thinking Trump is going to save the world, and the white hats, and whatever story, that is the perfect excuse for not taking responsibility of your own evolution. Because now you think Big Daddy is going to come and save you, instead of you saving yourself or transforming yourself and becoming the warrior that you are inside. Everybody is. That we were born here to be. So yeah, that was all I had to say about it.
Brilliant. That was outstanding. You mentioned a couple things I'd like to touch on. One thing for sure, like you said, I think Saturday will be a blast, because once we're all kind of on the same page about the processes and patterns at work and the evolution of things and how it's all unfolding, then we can apply it and say, all right, what's the deal? What do I do? In today's crazy world, what's going on, and how do I best help? Yeah, we can have some fun with that. That'll be good. One other thing, though, you said I thought was really cool. You said early on in the process, it's difficult, or you said something to those terms. And that's real important too. I'll just kind of use my 4-year process to explain. As my process kicked in, the first several weeks, it was exhilarating and amazing, far beyond compare anything I've ever experienced. In a lot of spiritual sort of fluff spiritual literature, you read about bliss and love and, divine union with God. And it's all this sort of wonderful love, light, and miracles kind of stuff. And truth is, that's what it feels like. I mean, man, I was just blown open time after time, and the blissful experiences, the sense of connection. What it did was, it was a teaser. It was like, yes, it was like bait on a hook, right?
Yeah, I know exactly. It's like, come inside the candy store, look.
Yeah. So Divine teased me with that bait for several weeks, and me and this woman I was with at the time, and oh my God, we were blown out. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. And then it all stopped for like 2 or 3 days, and we're both kind of, well, now what? What happened? So, and then the process actually started. The process of self-identity deconstruction started. The demolition process started, right?
Yeah.
So now you get your fingers dirty. Now you get your boots dirty. Now you dive into the mud and really start taking it on. And man, that was intense. And I would say the first year and a half of my process was just intense, difficult, challenging processes, one after another, as the outer layers of my ego shell were being hammered away and chiseled away. And that was hard, man. That was extremely hard, because I was falling apart. I was being taken apart from the inside out.
Yeah.
I don't know how to even describe it, but I guess in some sense, it's like a mental breakdown or something, because everything I thought of as me and my sense of groundedness and firm footing on the planet, and my sense of me as a person interacting with others, the persona we carry around and we present to others, that was all starting to be undermined. And that feels really weird. It freaks you out. It terrifies you. So the first year and a half was largely about that. Fortunately, divine Kundalini interspersed that process with little teasers of divine consciousness and divine connection, just to kind of keep me focused, keep me sane, keep me on the path. Because honestly, if that didn't happen, it's easy to imagine how my sanity could have spun out of control, and just I'd have been sitting in the corner drooling somewhere. So the first year and a half was difficult, just learning how the process works and how to handle it, how to tune into it, how to try to surrender to it more and more. Mm-hmm. And then the next year and a half was much more about, here comes another one. Here comes another phase of this process, this deconstruction process. And so I learned to jointly harmonize with it and flow with it better. And it became infinitely easier. And then the last year was really about sort of the deepest recesses of my egoic self, and what the fears and the beliefs that I took on as a result of those existential fears. Those were the really deep issues that were being hammered on in that last year. And as I dealt with them, I was able to be much more masterful about surrendering and allowing those final deeply gripped pieces to be disintegrated and eliminated. And so what I'm saying is, over those 4 years, early on, you're kind of freaked out, which I think might be the stage we're in as humanity right now, with all the crazy crap that's going on in the world. We're kind of freaked out. We're unstable. We're not sure what to do. The old ways clearly don't work because they cause all these problems. But we don't know quite how to surrender to it in a masterful way, to work our way through it and evolve ourselves through it, such that we can get massive numbers of people functioning at these higher awake levels and create a society and a civilization that really honors nature, honors God, and co-creates with both of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, this will be some really cool things to play with next Saturday, I think.
Yeah. We're gonna go deep into this. I feel we have so many rabbit holes we can go down. And also it will be an interactive experience. People can ask questions in the process and all stuff. So this is going to be interesting. And you will be sitting next to me physically. So the cool thing is we're living in the same little town of Vilcabamba. And so we are, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes away from each other. So you're going to come over here and sit here, and we will do a Saturday live event together, and people can ask questions as well, and we can dive in. And so this is going to be interesting. I am looking so much forward to it. So in the meantime, what's your website? Where can people find you if they want to dive into your material?
Yeah, like I mentioned to you, I'm recreating my websites right now, and I'm in the process of that. I've got a couple of existing websites. They're kind of old and they don't really show the whole picture about what we're talking about here at all, but they start to touch into it. So one of them is called transformationinstitute.org. The word's transformationinstitute.org. And the other one is a Spanish phrase, vidaclara.com.
Okay.
vidaclara.com. That means clear life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Transformation Institute site is where I offer my natural hygiene courses, and this deals with all aspects of personal health care. And it's the system I stumbled on 35 years ago and just has been outstanding. I consider it hardcore truth about healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody interested in that can go there and check it out. I'm going to be putting that whole course online. That's what I'm doing right now. So it'll be much more elegant process to go through that course if you're interested. And we can talk more about that. Email me anytime from the website about that. The other one, Vita Clara, talks much more about fasting and some of these spiritual issues we're talking about. So you can check into that too. But just be aware that all of this is going to be consolidated into a much more comprehensive website. Hope to have that ready, hopefully within about a month. So
okay,
that's how you can connect with me.
And I would say to the listeners that if you were open for some guidance regarding a fasting process, in my opinion, I would prefer to receive guidance on fasting from someone who are spiritually conscious and aware and has a certain level of maturity of understanding these things on a deeper level than just a mechanical medical approach to it. And so I would say I highly recommend people to go and check you out, your material out, and connect with you if they want to go through this fasting process, because I can't think of anybody more interesting and better suited for this than you. So yeah, I hope a lot of people will go and do this. And by the way, I'm planning on doing a fast myself. I think I actually going to start fasting after our Saturday event. I'm going to go on a water fast. How long? I don't know. We'll see. But I'm inspired from what you've been talking about. I'm like, oh yeah, this is one of these things that I need to go and look a little more deep into.
Well, I'll join you with that. We'll both start on Saturday. How's that?
Okay, that's cool. That's great. Cool. So right. I see you on Saturday, and I hope everybody will join in here, and we're going to have a great event, go down the rabbit hole, and then some. Thank you so much for coming, Robert, and see you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you, Josh. We'll see you Saturday.
Okay, ciao.